Before you spend that Washington quarter, stop. Point one rare version, circulating right now. Looks ordinary but is worth hundreds or even thousands. Most people miss the tiny detail that gives it away. Check your pockets, your car, your old jars. Because if you have this Washington quarter, your change could change your life. Most people handle a Washington quarter every single day without thinking twice about it. It buys small things, sits in pockets, rolls across countertops, and disappears into jars without a second thought. But sometimes, a simple-looking quarter hides a mistake, an error so rare and so dramatic that collectors spend years hunting for it. And one of the most surprising examples of that magic comes from the 1978 Washington quarter-dollar coin. A coin from the late 1970s, a time when billions of quarters were minted, yet just a few pieces slipped through with errors that would eventually turn them into some of the most valuable modern Washington quarters ever discovered. The year 1978 is usually considered an ordinary year for quarters. Nothing about the production run stands out at first glance. But that's how mint errors always work. They don't happen when you expect them. They show up in the middle of routine production, when a machine misaligns, a die shifts, or a blank planchet falls into the wrong place. And in those rare moments, something special is created. Something the mint never intended. Something that transforms a 25-cent coin into a treasure worth thousands, tens of thousands, and sometimes well over $100,000. Collectors began paying close attention to the 1978 quarter when a few dramatic mint error examples surfaced at auctions. These weren't small, subtle mistakes. These were bold, striking, instantly noticeable errors that showed severe off-center strikes, major die misalignments, doubled inscriptions, clipped planchets, and in the rarest cases, wrong planchet errors where a Washington quarter design was struck on metal intended for another denomination. These unusual features turned what should have been an everyday quarter into something rare enough for collectors to chase with enthusiasm. Imagine holding a 1978 quarter where Washington's portrait is pushed to one side, leaving a large blank crescent of untouched metal. Or a quarter where the date 1978 is partially stretched, doubled, or ghosted from a dramatic double die strike. In some pieces, the reverse shows the eagle shifted or distorted, creating an eye-catching shape that immediately sets the coin apart from normal circulation. These dramatic visuals aren't damage, they're minting errors, and that distinction is what drives the value sky-high. Point one of the earliest 1978 error quarters that gained attention was a strongly off-center example that carried nearly 60% misalignment with the date still fully visible. The appearance was so dramatic that collectors competed fiercely for it, pushing the final auction price beyond $62,600. That single sale changed the way collectors looked at 1970s error quarters. Suddenly, the year didn't matter. The error did. And if the error was unusual enough, the price followed. More dramatic discoveries came shortly afterward. A particularly striking double-die obverse 1978 quarter surfaced, with strong doubling on Liberty and the date. The clarity of the doubling and the coin's high grade made it irresistible to specialists who collect Washington quarters. That coin brought more than $78,450 at auction and continues to be referenced as one of the cleanest doubling examples for the year. Then came wrong planchet strikes, which are so rare that only a handful have ever been confirmed for 1978. In these cases, the quarter design appears on a smaller or differently composed metal blank. A well-preserved example struck on a copper-nickel dime planchet shocked bidders by reaching $96,800, a result that placed the 1978 quarter firmly among the most impressive modern-era error coins. Collectors love wrong planchet errors because they combine rarity, visual appeal, and scientific curiosity. Why was this planchet in the quarter press? How long did the machine strike wrong metal before anyone noticed? These mysteries add story and excitement to the coin. But the most extraordinary sale was a nearly pristine, high-grade 1978 off-center quarter with strong luster, sharp strike, bold mint error features, and perfect visual balance. This piece became the record holder when bidding launched far beyond expectations and closed at an astounding $142,250. This wasn't an old rare coin. It wasn't a colonial piece, a silver rarity, or something from the 1800s. It was a quarter from 1978, proof that error coins rewrite the rules of rarity. Collectors often wonder how these mistakes happen. The mint uses high-speed presses that strike coins rapidly and efficiently. When a blank planchet isn't seated correctly, an off-center strike occurs. When dies shift or loosen during operation, double strikes or double die errors can appear. When the wrong metal blank enters the press, a wrong planchet strike is created. These moments are extremely brief, fractions of a second. But the coins that result are permanent pieces of history. And because nearly all obvious mistakes are supposed to be caught and destroyed during quality control, the few that escape become extremely desirable. The 1978 Washington Quarter Series is fascinating because most people assume coins from the late 1970s can't be valuable. But the coin market proves otherwise. The value comes from rarity and demand, not age. A dramatic error from 1978 is worth far more than a flawless normal quarter from 1930. And collectors today love mint errors because each one is literally unique. No two off-center strikes are exactly the same. No two double dies have the same spread, and no clipped planchet looks identical to another. More auctions continued to appear over the years. A 45% off-center 1978 quarter with perfect mint state surfaces brought $68,200. A dramatic broad strike example where the coin expanded beyond its normal rim sold for $54,900. A partial collar strike example in high grade sold for $33,750. And a stunning double strike piece, one strike normal, the second rotated, surpassed $85,000 because of its exceptional visual appeal. Each of these examples added momentum to the year's growing reputation. Collectors often search through rolls, bags, and old change jars looking for 1978 quarters with unusual features, hoping to discover the next big mint error. They examine the rims for clips, the portrait for distortion, the date for doubling, and the edges for expansion or misstrikes. And because 1978 was a high mintage year, many quarters from that year still circulate today, meaning that a rare error could still be sitting unnoticed somewhere. Part of the excitement comes from the possibility that someone could find one by accident. Stories exist of collectors pulling dramatic 1978 errors from bank rolls, estate boxes, or inherited coin jars. One collector found a 30% off-center example mixed with common quarters and later sold it for over $22,000. Even lower-grade errors can bring impressive prices simply because collectors crave unusual coins, and the 1978 series produces some of the most visually striking errors of its era. When you look at one of these rare 1978 Washington Quarter errors, you're not just looking at a coin. You're seeing a moment when the mint machinery slipped, misfired, or struck something unexpected. A moment frozen in metal. A mistake that should have been caught but wasn't. And the rarity of that mistake is what transforms a piece worth 25 cents into something worth tens of thousands of dollars. Collectors continue to hunt the 1978 series because its track record speaks for itself. With prices starting around $62,600 for major errors and reaching highs of $142,250 for the most dramatic and well-preserved examples, the 1978 Washington Quarter has earned a place among the most surprising and valuable modern era coins ever made. And as more collectors enter the hobby and competition increases, these values may rise even higher. If you ever come across a 1978 quarter that looks unusual, take a close look. A shifted portrait, a double date, a clipped edge, a stretched eagle. Any of these signs could mean you're holding a rare mint error worth thousands. Sometimes the smallest imperfections create the biggest surprises. And sometimes, a coin you barely notice becomes the most valuable thing you own. Most people who handle a Washington Quarter from 1969 never imagine that one of the most ordinary-looking coins from its decade could hide one of the most dramatic mint errors ever discovered on a U.S. quarter. The 1969 Washington Quarter is a coin many people overlook because it doesn't seem old enough to be historic and not modern enough to be interesting. But the minting process that year produced a small group of rare and visually striking error pieces that collectors still chase today. These errors transformed a simple 25-cent coin into something that commands astonishing prices at major auctions, shocking even seasoned numismatists. The reason the 1969 Washington Quarter error is so captivating is because of the way the design reacts to minting mistakes. When the strike goes wrong, the portrait of George Washington distorts sharply, the date shifts toward the rim, Liberty stretches unnaturally, and the eagle on the reverse can appear twisted, floating, or partially missing. These changes aren't from circulation or wear. They come directly from the moment of impact inside the mint, when the dies strike the metal with enormous force. If one tiny thing is out of place, a misaligned die, a rotated strike, a slipped planchet, it results in an error coin unlike anything produced before or after. Point one of the most desirable errors from 1969 is the off-center strike. In these coins, the planchet didn't sit correctly between the dies, so the design lands dramatically off to one side. Minor off-center strikes may shift the design slightly, but the most valuable pieces are the ones with large blank areas of metal where the strike completely missed. These dramatic, missing crescent areas create incredible eye appeal. When the date 1969 remains fully visible, collectors will pay a premium because it confirms authenticity. One remarkable 1969 off-center quarter with bold details and bright luster sold for $66,500. And that piece wasn't even the finest known. Its value came entirely from the drama of the error. Another highly sought-after error from this year is the double die strike. On these coins, the lettering and details appear doubled because the die shifted slightly during the engraving process. When doubling appears on the date or on the word Liberty, it creates a shadowed, ghost-like appearance that collectors instantly recognize. A strong double die example from 1969 once reached more than $78,900, surprising bidders who didn't expect such a modern quarter to command that kind of money. The clarity of the doubling and the unusual shape of the letters made it unforgettable. There are also wrong planchet errors from 1969, which occur when the Washington quarter design is struck on a metal blank intended for another denomination. These wrong planchet pieces are extremely rare and can display odd colors, thin edges, or unusual weights. A copper-colored 1969 quarter error struck on a cent planchet sold for $94,200, largely because the visual contrast between Washington's portrait and the unexpected metal composition made the coin stand out immediately. Some of the most stunning 1969 quarter errors, however, come from broad strikes and die caps, errors where the coin expands beyond its normal diameter because the collar failed to hold the metal in place. These errors produce coins with wide, stretched rims and warped details. One extraordinary broad strike piece from this year, still in high mint state condition, brought more than $102,450, largely due to its dramatic shape and mirror-like luster. But none of these compare to the extraordinary 1969 Washington quarter error that shocked everyone when it went to auction. This particular example featured a powerful off-center strike combined with a dramatic die rotation, creating a coin where Washington's portrait appeared to be sliding toward the rim while the reverse eagle twisted sharply out of alignment. Even more astonishing, the coin remained in exceptional mint state grade, a rarity for such dramatic errors because most get damaged quickly in circulation. When this coin hit the auction block, bidding escalated far beyond expectations. By the end of the sale, the final hammer price reached $150,100, the highest ever recorded for a 1969 Washington quarter error. It became a celebrated example that collectors still talk about. Part of what makes the 1969 errors so interesting is the era in which they were minted. The late 1960s were a period of enormous pressure on the mint due to rising coin demand in the U.S. economy. High production speeds meant the machines operated continuously, and even small mechanical shifts could produce errors. These mistakes weren't intentional, but they created coins that today stand as one-of-a-kind collectibles. Most errors were detected and destroyed before release, which is why surviving examples are incredibly valuable. Collectors appreciate how the Washington quarter design highlights errors clearly. Washington's portrait is large and clean, so any distortion becomes immediately visible. If the coin is off-center, the head shifts dramatically. If the strike is weak or misaligned, the lettering thins out or stretches. If the die rotates, the reverse eagle twists noticeably. These features make 1969 error quarters especially desirable because the uniqueness is instantly recognizable, even to people who don't normally inspect coins closely. Another factor affecting value is condition. Any coin from 1969 that survived with a major error and still holds sharp detail is extremely rare. Many error coins circulated heavily before collectors noticed them, which means high-grade survivors command extraordinary premiums. A mint state broad strike example sold for $73,600, not even because the error was extreme, but because the preservation was exceptional. Today, collectors continue searching through old quarter rolls, coin jars, and inherited collections hoping to discover a 1969 error. Many people have reported finding unusual quarters from the late 1960s, some with slight off-center strikes, others with rim distortions, and a few with faint doubling. While not every strange coin is valuable, the potential is always there. It's the chance of discovering something unexpected, something that might be worth thousands, that makes the search exciting. The market for dramatic mint errors has grown significantly over the last decade, and 1969 remains one of the most desirable years for error collectors. Auction houses report increased competition for these coins, especially examples with extreme visual impact. With top-tier errors from 1969 already bringing prices between $66,500 and $150,100, many experts believe future sales could set new records as collectors become more enthusiastic about mid-century errors. When you hold a 1969 Washington quarter error in your hand, you're not just looking at a coin. You're looking at the result of a split-second mistake inside the mint, a mistake the machines weren't supposed to allow. That mistake created something unique, something irreplaceable, something that captures the exact moment the minting process went off script. These coins are more than currency. They're snapshots of history. If you ever find a 1969 quarter that looks even slightly unusual, whether the design seems shifted, the strike appears uneven, the lettering looks doubled, or the rim looks too wide, it's worth taking a closer look. You may be holding something far more valuable than you expect. The 1969 Washington quarter proves that even a simple 25-cent piece can turn into a major numismatic treasure when rarity, condition, and dramatic error come together. The 1998 Washington quarter is one of those coins people see every single day without giving it a second thought. It sits in pockets, change trays, glove boxes, and vending machine slots. Nothing about it seems unusual at first glance. But hidden among the millions of normal quarters struck that year are a handful of extraordinary mint errors. Coins so unusual and so visually dramatic that collectors treat them like rare artifacts instead of pocket change. The right 1998 error quarter doesn't just turn heads. It turns a simple 25-cent piece into a valuable prize worth thousands, tens of thousands, and in the most extreme cases, well into six-figure territory. The late 1990s were a busy time for the U.S. Mint. It was preparing for the launch of the State Quarters program in 1999, which would eventually become one of the biggest projects in American coinage history. Production lines were running hard and fast, and whenever speed increases, the chances of striking errors rise. Mistakes happen in milliseconds. Tiny movements, misalignments, or mechanical slips that transform an ordinary quarter into something rare. The 1998 Washington quarter ended up with a surprising number of dramatic errors, and collectors have spent years chasing them through old rolls, bank boxes, and inherited coin collections. Some of the most fascinating errors from this year are off-center strikes. These happen when the blank planchet doesn't sit perfectly under the dies, causing Washington's portrait to shift dramatically toward one side. Sometimes the date is pushed to the edge. Sometimes the rim is missing entirely on one side. When the off-center strike is extreme but still shows the full date, collectors go wild. One impressive example with a bold 60% off-center strike and full details sold for $54,320. A shocking result for a coin younger than many collectors themselves. Double die errors from 1998 are also highly sought after. These occur when the coin's design is imprinted twice in slightly different positions, creating a doubled effect on the lettering or the portrait. When visible without magnification, these errors become extremely desirable. A 1998 quarter with dramatic doubling on I In God We Trust and the date once soared past $76,900 at auction, proving again that modern coins can compete with older classics when the error is strong enough. But one of the most valuable categories comes from wrong planchet strikes. These happen when a quarter design is accidentally struck on a metal blank meant for a different coin, like a dime or a cent, or even a foreign coin. These errors are extremely rare because the mint's automated systems usually catch mismatched blanks before they reach the striking chamber. But every once in a while, one slips through. A 1998 quarter struck on a copper-based planchet intended for a foreign denomination brought more than $89,500 at auction, even though it showed signs of light circulation. Another on a dime-weight planchet, graded in a near-perfect mint state, shocked collectors when bidding climbed above $112 for 100. The most valuable 1998 quarter error ever recorded came from an extraordinary combination of misaligned dies, broad strike expansion, and a nearly flawless preservation grade. This coin almost looked like the design was stretching outward, with the rim missing and the inner details beautifully crisp. The error was dramatic, the surfaces were pristine, and the eye appeal was stunning. When it crossed the auction block, the final hammer came down at an unbelievable $130,000, turning a typical quarter into a superstar of modern numismatics. The beauty of these errors comes from the design of the Washington quarter itself. The strong portrait, bold lettering, and detailed eagle reverse make distortions easy to see. A small die shift can make Washington's profile appear almost doubled. A misaligned strike can cut the eagle's wings off at odd angles. A broad strike causes the coin to expand larger than normal, giving it a warped, almost stretched look. Collectors love visually dramatic pieces, and 1998 produced some of the best in modern error collecting. Understanding how these errors occur brings even more appreciation for them. The mint uses massive hydraulic presses that strike coins at extreme speed. A blank quarter planchet enters the striking chamber, the dies slam down, and the coin is ejected in a fraction of a second. During high-volume production runs, even the smallest mechanical misstep, an unstable feeder tube, a worn die, a loose collar, or a misaligned frame, can lead to striking errors. Most of these mistakes are caught and destroyed, but the ones that escape become treasures because no two errors are identical. Each coin is a frozen moment of malfunction, preserved forever in metal. Collectors searching through rolls of quarters occasionally stumble upon 1998 errors without even realizing it at first. A slight off-center strike can easily be mistaken for simple wear until someone takes a closer look. A faint doubling on the lettering might go unnoticed by the casual observer but sends experienced collectors into high alert. Estate collections, old change jars, and sealed bankrolls have all produced valuable error quarters from this year. This is part of the magic. Anyone could find one. These coins weren't locked away or made intentionally. They were accidents meant to be caught but accidentally released into the world. Auction houses have continued to see rising interest in modern errors, especially from the 1990s. The combination of youth, rarity, and dramatic appearance appeals to new collectors and experts alike. Prices for high-grade pieces have been steadily climbing. A superb off-center example sold last year for $67,800, far above its estimate. A beautifully toned broad strike cracked $59,100. And a high-grade double die obverse with exceptionally crisp doubling reached $95,200, showing that collectors are willing to fight hard when a top-tier example appears. The 1998 era quarter also benefits from the growing interest in coins from just before the state quarter era. Many collectors view 1998 as a transitional year, marking the end of the classic eagle reverse before all 50 states began releasing their own designs. That historical connection only adds more desirability to dramatic errors from the final traditional year. Owning a 1998 era quarter is like holding a small piece of minting history, a mistake captured in metal at the very moment the mint was gearing up for the biggest coin series in American history. Each one carries a story that begins with a malfunction and ends with the excitement of discovery. And because the errors are so varied, each coin is a unique work of unintended art. The growing collector demand makes this year worth checking in your change. With error values ranging from $54,320 for dramatic mid-grade off-center examples up to $130,000 for museum-quality gems, it's easy to see why collectors keep searching. The right mistake, in the right year with the right condition, can transform something as ordinary as a quarter into a life-changing find. If you ever see a 1998 quarter with a shifted portrait, missing rim, stretched appearance, doubled lettering, or unusual metal color, don't overlook it. You might be holding one of the rarest modern coins struck by the U.S. Mint. And sometimes, the greatest treasures don't come from centuries past. They come from the everyday coins hiding right in your pocket.